Hi, welcome back to my channel where I am documenting the making of my own manga series. Now that all the pages that I've worked on have been measured and cut out to match, because if you watched my last video, you know that I was working on a sketch paper from different sketchbooks. So some of them were different sizes and lengths. So I had to go through all of them and cut them lengthwise and through the width so they could all match. And with some of them, I also had to glue an extra piece of paper to the back of the sheet to thicken it up, because once I get to the painting part of it, I'm going to be layering a lot of paint on. So it needs to be a sturdy consistency for them. I'm so happy I did that. It was time consuming, but all the pages fit so much better in the booklet now, and they are all the perfect size and all fit together like a proper book, and they're so much more satisfying. It was time consuming, but I'm very happy I did that because now all the pages are the same consistency, ready to paint, and they're all the same size, which is great. Now that all the pages are roughly sketched out, I've started putting in the dialogue and the description boxes. I haven't put them onto the pages yet because I've decided to do a rough draft of everything first into a sketchbook so then I can get the idea out of my head and make sure it all flows nicely before putting it onto the final pages. This is really helpful because obviously as we're writing we make mistakes, and this has allowed me to be able to scribble things out and start all over again, and see what paragraphs don't work and reframe some words and things like that, because if I'd gone onto the pages first, it would have been a lot of rubbing things out and starting again, and it would have been a lot of confusion as well, having to flip through things. So it's been easier just to work on a sketchbook, writing things out whilst looking at the pages and marking where everything goes, and then I'm going to go from there. When I do eventually get onto putting the dialogue and the writing onto the pages, I'm going to record that with you guys and show it off, because I'm only doing 10 pages of dialogue and writing at a time and then going on to the painting. So then it's all part of the art process, and then it gets me onto the painting quicker, and then everyone gets a sneak peek of what's happening and what the art style is going to look like, and I'm looking forward to seeing it all finally come to life. So yeah, I'm going to do these 10 pages of writing and then move on to painting and go on from there. In this video today, I'm going to explain why writing for a manga is really, really important. A lot more went into the writing than I originally thought, and I learned a lot of things that really helped me. It was a lot of fun fleshing things out and really building an immersive world for people to get involved in and for me to believe in as well. But I also just realized that there was so many more things to go into than just like a basic plot or just basic characters, and that I really want to build like a really in-depth world. So writing things out really helps me. So I'm just going to go through some of the things I really fleshed out in my story to finally feel comfortable to get to the point of making the artwork and going on to the dialogue and description boxes for what's happening in the story. And I also have a rough idea of where my story is going to go and end, I think. I only say I think because I mean things change all the time, so I don't know 100% if the way I plan for it to end is going to be the way it ends, because as the story progresses, who knows? This is only, volume 0 of like the first portion of the manga. If it goes the way it goes in my head, that'll be like 3 books, and this is only like volume 0, so literally not even number 1, then introductions. Writing has given me a very good guideline, and even if it doesn't end exactly the way I think it's going to, I think it will be around the ballpark of where I have it in my mind. It might even go further than 3 books, who knows? And I'm going to try and explain the writing process without spoiling any of the plot, because I kind of want that to be a surprise. And as I said, we're getting sneak peeks as we go along and do the painting, so there's no real need to spoil anything right now, is there? So my story is based off of a drawing that I had done beforehand of an alien and his wife that he met on Earth. So for me, the writing started with how my 2 main characters were going to meet and kind of the world they lived in and the circumstances of which brought them together. Sometimes it's great just to play around with ideas, I think, because I toyed with many different ways that they could have come together, whether or not they were already on Earth or if the alien was from a different planet. And eventually I did decide to land on the alien being on a different planet and then eventually landing on Earth to meet his wife. But that gave me a good idea of kind of the journey of them coming together and the worlds that they individually lived in, which is important because world building is absolutely so important to me for any story. So then realizing that we were going to start on one world and if it eventually transitioned to another, even though it's Earth, it's going to be different. That gave me a really good idea on how I was going to build the story. And because we were starting off on an alien planet, I had to think of a whole new set of law and rules to this planet because I needed to build the culture of my main character and where he was from, because obviously our cultural background inspires who we are as people. So I wanted to build my main character to be a fully formed person. And as soon as we were starting on his home had to be in depth. So that was a lot of writing I did just to build a whole other planet and the circumstance of the planet and where he lives and the conditions and how he somehow ends up on Earth. There's also going to be like other planets in between before ending up on Earth. So that was also another aspect to write out because I wanted to make a difference between each planet. I'm going a little bit Rick and Morty with it, you know. We're not staying on different planets very long, but I'm trying to have them have their own personalities and distinguish each one between the next one. And it was fun as well because building the alien planets, I did that kind of from scratch. I kind of made everything up as I went along and just had fun with what I was doing with it and just put a lot of ideas into it that I didn't do any research for. Unlike Earth, that we eventually get to in the manga, there were certain things that I had to research into, which also involved a lot of writing and noting down because there was a lot of things happening on Earth that I want to be inspired in the manga. So it was fun to do the different ends of that, of creating like this alien wacky planet from just in my head, then going to an Earth that is inspired by like real life events and doing actual research on things that are going into it. So if you're making a manga that's inspired by any real life events, whether like social, political, religious, or anything like that, doing research and really filling up information of what you want to put into the manga and what it means is really, really helpful, I think. And when I say what it means, I know a lot of times mangas and comic books are made purely just for fun and just random wacky ideas. But for anyone who's making a manga like mine, who's maybe trying to put more realistic tones in there with some of the wackiness and things like that, doing research on things you're trying to say through the manga, I think is really, really important. It gives you a clear idea of what you're trying to say and you'll be able to get across the meaning of your story a lot better. Because the alien planet that I built is roughly inspired by things that sometimes happen on Earth or different places on Earth, but I didn't do any research because I wanted it to be just completely new, you know, like completely new alien planet. Whereas the Earth that I'm building in my book, it does have realistic elements to it. So the things that I wanted to put into it, looking into them and doing the actual research and getting clear on what I was trying to say and making sure I had actual knowledge of the things I was trying to say was very, very important and very, very insightful. Doing the research was very, very fun for me. I think building a really, really good plot is more important than building up dialogue first. For me personally, maybe some people start with dialogue and build off of that. But for me, I find it better to write the dialogue once I have the images out of my head onto the pages because I kind of see what I want to happen m- before I hear it, if you know what I mean. So it's easier for me just to get the scene out of my head the way I see it, and then the words just come along as they're meant to. That's how I'm working on my first volume. And I think having a rough plot written out is really, really important. I don't think you have to have every single detail down to the minute fact before you start drawing or doing anything else. Because right now, I started doing my book and I wrote out the introduction fully first before going on to drawing it. Even though I do have a very good idea of the plot that is for the first whole book, there's not every single piece of detail put into it yet. I'm going to be doing it like a chapter at a time. So I don't think you need to have every single idea of the plot written out. It can be done in stages, but I think it is a good idea to roughly know how you want the beginning, middle, and end to go, just to have that North Star to follow. Because I think when you read a book or watch a movie and the writer doesn't know where they're going with it, it's really easy to tell. So I think the best story is always the one where you know the writer knows where they're going with it. So writing out even just a rough plot of where you want it to go, I think is really, really important. Or if you're someone like me who's building a multi-book series, I think it's a good idea to know where you're going from the first book to the very end. Again, not in complete detail. Like, I don't think you have to have it all completely mapped out perfectly. That kind of takes the fun out of it anyway. But I do think it's good to just kind of have a rough idea, a rough roadmap of where you want to go from start to finish, just so you have that guideline to follow. And it's good to write that down. And I think it's good to write it down because a lot of things you write down for the plot, you'll see some things don't fit together. Like, I realized when I was trying to connect a lot of things that would happen as we go along, some things wouldn't make sense with another thing that happened and it just made like a major plot hole. And seeing it written down, I was able to be like, oh, okay, that doesn't work with that, and I was able to change things. And it's so far given me a really good base to start with. It's also given me really good imagery of how I want things to look and the style and things like that. So for me, I know some people might be very different, but I heavily focused on world building, plot, meaning, and things like that before I went on to like dialogue and characters. For me, that felt more natural than doing any characters first. I know for some people might do it the other way, but that was my process. I still need to do a lot of character and plot development now, but things are definitely a lot more fleshed out because when I started, the characters I had were very much just pawns and I was like moving them like a chess game just to see how I wanted the story to flow and how I wanted things to go. But now that I've actually written things down, like plot in more detail, I've got such a clear vision of how I want things to go. And it's been so much fun, like writing detailed description of worlds and things I want to put in, and maybe some more satire elements and more mystery and things like that. It's been fun to write it down and explore and just play around with this world and see what I can make work and just be really creative with it. And because I built the plot and had a good idea where I wanted to go with it, I now knew what I wanted a lot of characters to be and who I wanted them to be, because their actions and who they are obviously made an effect of the rest of the story. It gave me a good understanding of who I wanted the villains to be and who I wanted the good guys to be and what everyone was fighting for and what was the purpose of each character in the story and what they represented. Especially the main characters, because I hate it when there's a main character and they're just empty, nothing voids that just are moved as the plot goes. I really wanted to have developed characters, and now that I have a story where I know where I'm going with it, the characters make sense to me and they all have a purpose. So I do also say that writing out characters and people's motivations and their backgrounds is also very, very important. Even some things that you probably may not even use. I think there's some things that I wrote down that I may not even come into factor into the story. But I think when you are able to write your characters and you understand them, it helps you understand their motivations in the story and also why they're in the story and where we're going with it. And they're not just voidless characters just going through it so the plot can develop. They are a moving part and functioning part of the story. Because as I said, my main character is an alien who eventually meets a woman on Earth and they get together and stuff, but I didn't want them to just be that. You know what I mean? I wanted them to have full lives and arcs and reasons for being and things like that. So for me, I wrote down how I wanted the story to go, the meaning and the plot, and then that helped me flesh out the characters and what I wanted to do with the characters from there. As I said, I don't think you need to have everything written out, but I do think having the main characters, understanding them and their character flaws and their good sides and everything about them, I think that is very important to help you understand where you're going with the story and where you eventually want these characters to end up. So yes, those are the main things that I've written out so far. As I said, there's still a lot of writing I need to do, but that's mainly what I'm going to do as I go along, because I really want to start the painting and drawing the rest of the pages and things like that. So I'm going to be doing a lot of writing as I go along, even though I have already done a lot of writing. I think I've filled one sketchbook now, but as I said, this is like a 3 to 4 book story, and I'm on volume 1 of the first book. So a lot of writing still needs to be done, but I've done enough to finally feel comfortable to start doing the really fun, creative parts of it. I think it's also helpful to share what I've learned, in the writing process, because as I said, there was a lot more to it than even I thought. So going along and building the world and building the characters has been so much fun, and I'm happy to share it with everyone. And hopefully this helped. I'll probably be doing an update at some point, like a part 2 of the writing process once I've done more and the story has come a lot further. But for now, thank you for joining me. I hope this has helped, and I will see you in my next video where I will probably be writing the dialogue into the sketchbook, and then after that, I think we'll be on to painting the first 10 pages. So I will see you in the next one, and goodbye.